Yeah, 100%.
and not to the Gupta residents?
But the specific discussion was, we're meeting in Johannesburg. If you want to meet the guys, I can take you through, and there was that agreement.
Is your understanding that he came all the way from KwaZulu-Natal for the purpose of that trip to the Gupta residence, or is the position that he was in Gauteng and there was an opportunity to meet and to go there, and that is what was done?
I don't want to put other people's business in the streets, but he was in Gauteng at that specific point.
Yes.
Some of the meetings that we've had have been in the Gauteng space.
Yes, okay.
More specifically, Pretoria.
Yes.
This given time, he honored me and he graced me with his presence in Johannesburg, so he made the trip.
Yes.
And I appreciated him for doing that because he didn't have to.
Yes.
And from there, we went through to the residence. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the two that are remaining, it's Advocate Ramatlhodi and Mr. Mofe. You must have read the statement. The legal team...
I'm sorry, before you do that,
Yes.
Just maybe to complete maybe what I'm saying might be kind of observation, some things that one is noting. On this occasion, there is somebody that you are taking to the Gupta residence. That person, the person that person meets at the Gupta residence is Mr. Rajesh Gupta, Tony Gupta. So those are the two aspects. The third one is the one that Mr. Mokoena mentioned, that what we have is on the two trips, on the two visits to the Gupta residence, one involving Mr. Jonas, the other one, General Poison. Both of them say they were not aware that they were being taken to the Gupta residence. But you have said, actually, each one of them knew quite well that the trip was going there. In the case of Mr. Jonas, that was decided after after you had met at the Hyatt Hotel. In regard to General Poison, you say that there must be a trip to the Gupta residence had been discussed and decided even before you met at the Gau train station.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
I think it may not be well known, it may be well known, I don't know. It was pointed out in the company organogram that Mr. Tony is a business partner of mine. And Mr. Tony Gupta is a business partner of mine.
Yes,
Yes, and he's also a very dear and close friend.
Well, I was about to check that because I seem to have read somewhere that out of the Gupta brothers, he was the one that was quite close to you.
That's correct. The reason I'm pointing that out is because I spent a lot of time with him on a daily basis.
And in regard to him, we can say he was particularly close to you.
More than particularly close to you.
Okay.
That's my guy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's your guy. I'm just about to move to Mr. Ramatlhodi and Mr. Mofe. The legal team of the commission took the view that the two of them mentions your name, but they do not implicate you. And
Who are you talking about now?
Mr. Ramatlhodi and Mr. Mofe.
Okay, all right.
Yes. However, you are given a 3.3 notice.
Yes, sir.
You might have read their statement. Both of them, I mean, Mr. Mofe is simply confirming what he was told by Mr. Ramatlhodi.
Yes, sir.
Then we can stay with Mr. Ramatlhodi. Do you wish to react to any of the contents of his statement?
No, I've got nothing to...
I'm sorry, Mr. Mokoena, for the sake of the public and those watching, do you want to repeat what they say?
Yes. Let's go to
So that they can
let's go to
follow the
folder
answer.
number folder number, should be 5, I think. If you go to folder number 5, and you go to page 2, the relevant portions where your name is mentioned appears to be paragraph 2 to 11, and as requested by the chair, let me contextualize them and simply, by reading only those relevant portions. Paragraph 2 says, following my appointment, I received many congratulatory messages, including one from Duduzane Zuma. What was peculiar about Duduzane's message was that he asked me to meet me and convey his message personally. At the time, I responded by saying I was very busy in Cape Town and that during weekends I should still be busy because of my political appointments. Then, after a few months, I got a frantic call from Duduzane, who was demanding to meet me. I arranged to see him at St. George's Hotel, where we were having a national executive meeting. In that meeting, he said to me he was sorry to meet me under those circumstances where he had lodged a complaint against me instead of meeting me in order to congratulate me. He wanted to tell me that he had received information from 2 sources that reported that I have been going around bad-mouthing him and his business associates, saying that they were involved in criminal activities. I asked him who his sources were. He mentioned 2 names, one from India and the other from South Africa. I do not remember those names because he promised to furnish me with the names in writing. That never happened. He also mentioned that he told his father, the president, about these allegations. My response was that he grew up in front of me, so I was one of his uncles, as we were referred to those days by children in exile. I went on to say that as his uncle, I do not need to run around reporting on him doing crime. I would simply summon him and ask him if he was doing crime, and if he was, I would order him to stop or report him to the police. I went to tell him that I will tell his father about our conversation. His response was to ask me to meet AJ Gupta in order to explain the situation to AJ Gupta. I told him I don't know AJ and I owe him nothing. He left the meeting on that note. Any of these facts emanating from this paragraph which are accurate or which you wish to comment on? Did you call Mr. Ramatlhodi? Did you have that exchange of?
If I may start from point number 2, and that states that following my appointment, I received many congratulatory messages, including one from myself. I do not recall that, but that could be true. I'll take it as that being the case. Sounds like something I could have done. As for paragraph 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Yes. And
Well, when you say you're not sure what he's talking about, are you saying you have no recollection of what he says you said to him and he said to you on that occasion? Are you saying you are denying that you said to him what he says you said to him, and so on? Or what is the position?
The position, Chair, is that I'm denying the points that I mentioned out.
Yes.
This version of events as placed in this document do not reflect the reality at that time.
But do you admit having met with him on that occasion?
On which occasion?
I think
Okay.
he says first you made calls, but ultimately the two of you met at St. George's Hotel.
No.
You say there was no such meeting.
There was no such meeting. The only times I've met him have been in passing. There's been no formal sit-downs or get-togethers.
And are you sure about that? Because it might have been quite a few years back. It's important for you to reflect in case maybe it's true you have forgotten, or are you quite sure that it never happened?
No,
that meeting never happened.
I'm quite sure. I mean, he's detailing a lot of
Yes.
events that happened in that time frame, and none of that is reflective to that. So, me meeting him at St. George's Hotel to discuss this subject matter that he's placing forward, because that's what these paragraphs are about, is entirely not true.
Yes. Is it possible that the meeting and the discussion did happen, but he might have got the venue wrong when he says St. George's Hotel? Maybe it happened elsewhere.
As I'm saying, any formal sitting with Minister Ramatlhodi has never happened, whether it's St. George's or anywhere else. And as I stated, I have bumped into him in a number of places, but that's been in passing.
Well, I don't know whether you would call this, if the meeting that he's talking about, a formal meeting, but in other words, you say that you have not at any stage in the past ever accused him or complained to him that you had that he was mouthing you or your companies and so on. You have never had any discussion along those lines with him?
No, I haven't had that discussion with him, Chair.
Yes, okay.
So all these details that is putting from these paragraphs, he's simply imagining them. They never happened.
More than that, Chief, it's an environmental issue, because now we've spent a whole page printing a whole bunch of stuff that shouldn't be here.
Yes.
Now, if you turn to the folder number 6,
Yes, sir.
paragraph 4,
I'm
Now-
sorry. The paragraphs that you said you don't know what he's talking about, did they include paragraph 11? I'm sorry.
yes, they do.
They did.
Yes, I read it, Chair.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
If you go to the next folder, that is the statement of Mr. Mofe, and if you turn to page 5, paragraph 4, he's now relating to the chair what happened in relation to you, as stated by Mr. Ramatlhodi. He says that former Minister Ramatlhodi informed me that Mr. Duduzane Zuma called me and wanted to meet him for the purpose of which was to congratulate him on his appointment as Minister, Mineral Resources. I cannot remember the date since it was not essential that I record it. And that's, the essence of Mr. Mofe, simply confirming what he was told by Mr. Ramatlhodi. I'm sure that, is there anything to react to?
No, I cannot react on this point.
Yes. Lastly, Mr. Chair, I just want Mr. Zuma to confirm, if you go to folder number 7, you can...
Before we go to number 7, going back to what Mr. Ramatlhodi said, Mr. Zuma,
folder 5.
Going back to folder 5, and I'm looking particularly at paragraph 11. So I'm bearing in mind that you say there was no such discussion. The discussion is talking about never happened between the two of you. I bear that in mind. But if one looks at what he says, if that discussion did take place, it seems that one of the things you wanted to do in paragraph 11 was to get two people, that himself and Mr. Ajay Gupta, to meet to discuss maybe rumors of mouthing and so on. And I go back to Mr. Jonas. You have Mr. Hlongwana. You get to know that there are rumors that Mr. Jonas was blackmailing Mr. Hlongwana, and then you want to bring them together to resolve that. It seems that Mr. Ramatlodi, if what he's saying is true, is coming up with a situation where you have become aware of rumors of him bad-mouthing your companies, and I guess Mr. Ajay Gupta as well, and you want to get them to meet to discuss the matter. Is that right? You understand that?
I see your
if
point.
his version is
Yes,
correct,
yes,
yeah.
and that-
but you say it's not correct.
That's not correct, and it fits into the narrative, of course,
Yes.
which is two. One being myself being an organizer, a conduit to meetings and influence and whatever else it is, and the second point being I'm always there trying to put people together to resolve, issues that are non-issues via rumors in the atmosphere. So I take your point here, and I see where you're coming from. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The folder number 7, just for you to confirm, you see that the first diagram, it's having a face right on the center of it. Can you see that? And there are a number of entities. I've gone through them. I just want you to confirm whether were you the director or having any stake in those, companies. If you want, you can take them one by one and just take us through.
If I may make a request, because obviously
Yes.
I'll need to check. A lot has changed
Yes.
over a period of time, so I don't want to give the wrong information.
Yes.
Looking at some of these companies, yes,
Yes.
I have been involved. Some of them I am not too sure
Yes.
what the situation is. So if I can
Yes. Yes, we
request that whatever question is being raised, I can pointedly
Yes.
go through
Yes.
one by one, and I can submit it to
Yes.
the commission as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
I wouldn't be too sure at this point.
That should not be a problem. So in other words, you want to check
Yes.
before you give any answer in regard to each of the companies,
Everything-
because there are too many of them.
Active, not active, share,
Yeah.
register, the whole thing.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that should not be a problem.
Thank you very
If you can also do the same in relation to Mabangela.
much. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Chair, that concludes the question from Mr. Zuma.
Yes, there are two ways in which this can be done. One obvious one is for you to submit an affidavit in which you explain what the position was.
Okay.
I didn't apply my mind to your question, Mr. Mkwena, whether you were talking about now or you are talking about at a particular time. So when he looks, he needs to be able to say, in this one, I have been a shareholder or director from that time up to now. So is there a time frame that...
No, he'll guide us. He'll just look at the company
Yeah.
and where he knows that at some point he was
Yeah.
director, he'll say it.
And then he can give
He
the
can give us the
time frame where
timelines,
necessary.
timeframes of it,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. No.
That will quite help.
Yeah, that can be done. And do you think you would need more than 7 days to?
No, most definitely not, Chair.
Yeah. So let's say today is Monday, if at all possible, if that affidavit could be delivered to the commission not later than Monday next week.
Will do, Chair.
Yeah, okay, all right. You are done.
I'm done, Chair.
Okay. Before I release you or allow your counsel to say something, I just want to ask one or two questions going back to Mr. Jonas and the meeting in the Gupta residence. Mr. Jonas said that, among other things, he said that the Gupta brother who was in the meeting told him that, told him that they would make him rich or he would be rich or something to that effect, and said that, said something along the lines that you had become a billionaire, or they had made you a billionaire. I'm not checking now the exact wording, and that you, I think he said they said to him, you had been able to buy a house in Dubai at that time. Now, of course, the question that immediately arises would be, in case those things are factually correct, how would Mr. Jonas know them? Or were the information that was publicly available? So I just want to raise that because it is in my mind as well. I don't know if you are able to say anything.
My only comment at this point is I'm not sure where you would have got that information from, but there has been a great deal of publicity around my financial status. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm sitting here today.
Yeah.
That's for the claims that I've been made this wealthy person. And then secondly is property in Dubai.
Yes.
That's also been, I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, but unfortunately I have. It's been well publicized.
Yes.
In the media space. So I think those are ideas that have made the rounds over the past few years.
But part of my question would be whether, leaving out what the position is now of what is publicly available, whether at that time that was publicly
Like I said,
available.
I'm not sure.
You are not sure?
I'm not sure. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I think Council wants to say something.
Yes, Chair, I would have thought that we have a right of re-examination. Just
Yes,
short, I've
you
got
do.
about 7 points.
Sorry. Sorry to do this again to everybody, but am I the only one that needs to use a bathroom in this room?
Okay.
Sorry, can I take a comfort break, please?
No, that's all right. I wanted to say to you earlier on, you asked for a comfort break, but I said, well, I wanted to say the chairperson needs to be au fait with all the terminology, because sometimes it's comfort break, sometimes it's an opportunity to wash hands. So, okay, we are at 22:04. We were going to, we normally stop at 4, but sometimes when it's necessary, we go beyond that. We do serve some witnesses tomorrow, but they are short. So depending on how much time you need, I just want to mention that subject to everybody being agreeable, there is an opportunity of finishing tomorrow morning.
Mr. Chair, we understood, in fact, that we were going to be here for 2 days.
Oh, yes,
but
yes.
we have a difference on our side of the fence. We understood 2 days, and Mr. Helens understood 1 day.
Well, I can say that certainly my contemplation was that we should be able to finish with him in 1 day, but that should we not finish, we would continue the following day before other witnesses. But as things stand, Mr. Mkwena has no further questions. If there is room for us to try and finish, there is room for us, subject to what Mr. Helens might have to say, there's room for us to finish tomorrow morning.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
No fingers pointed. We thought it was 1 day.
Okay.
Tomorrow is difficult for me.
Okay.
I have about 5 areas to cover, which I don't believe will take more than 10 to 12 minutes.
Yes.
So if I could go before Mr. Lowe,
Yes.
I'd finish today, and if Mr. Lowe needs to run in tomorrow,
Yes.
he can do that, and I don't have to be here
Yes.
because he's dealing with Jonas, and I'm
Yes,
not
yes.
involved with Jonas.
Yes, I don't have a problem with that if he has no problem with that. Yes. Okay, then is that fine with you? Would that be fine with you?
That is excellent.
That would be fine. Okay, so I think we must then take the comfort break and then come back, and then Mr. Helens will then have a chance to re-examine. And then when we finish, then maybe we can adjourn to tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
We are nearly 3:45. Let's just adjourn until 4 o'clock. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we adjourn.
All rise.
Yes, Mr. Helens, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuma, you will have heard the phrase "on the scene of the crime" a few times. Now, no one's actually suggesting, I think, that a crime was committed, but they're using the phrase in inverted commas to say, and yet at a significant moment you were there, and yet at a significant moment again you were there. And what is sought to be painted, I think, is a pattern which is undeniably something that must be questioned and is ominous. Do you understand that that, in my submission, is the theme of those questions?
I understand, sir.
Now, to test whether you actually were at the places that people say you were and doing or saying what they say you were doing or saying, it would appear to me that this commission it's incumbent on this commission to investigate whether there could possibly be any truth behind that which is being described by the witness. Do you have a comment on that? That's a leading question. I beg your pardon.
No, that's definitely the Commission's duty, I believe.
Okay. Now let's take a concrete example. Mr. Tukwana is said that someone at Saxonwold said that you were getting money from a mine in Jagersfontein. And this was a good indication, it is suggested, that there would be something in it for Mr. Tukwana money-wise if he also climbed in to this effort with Mr. Magashule to make money. I can give the appropriate section, but we all know what we're talking about. You remember that evidence?
I do, sir.
Do you have any interest in a mine in Jagersfontein?
No, I do not, sir.
Do you have any knowledge of a mine in Jagersfontein that you could possibly be said to be receiving money from?
No, sir.
Do the Guptas, with whom you are negatively linked, have a mine in Jagersfontein?
No, sir.
Would you invite this commission to investigate what mines there are in Jagersfontein to establish whether it would be remotely possible for you to get money from a mine in Jagersfontein?
As I had mentioned earlier, I hoped that they had done so. They clearly haven't, but I'll definitely invite them to do so.
Now, it would seem inexplicable that if you are not getting money from a mine in Jagersfontein, and this was a portentous or ominous allegation made by a witness led before this commission and before the public, that investigation as to the possibility even of you receiving money from a Jagersfontein mine had not in fact been investigated. Would you agree?
I agree, sir.
Now, to conclude on Mr. Tukwana, if it is found that there's not the remotest possibility of you receiving money from that source, then it would appear outlandish that anyone would make such a suggestion, and then it would bear on whether Mr. Tukwana is talking the truth at all as to your presence at a meeting where you say you were not present.
That would be correct, sir.
What is your attitude, finally, about the investigation into the Jagersfontein money? Do you invite it? Do you ask for it?
As I said earlier on, it's a point that I'd raised, and with all due respect to the Commission, I was slightly disappointed that it wasn't looked into, but we're sitting here today, and if there's a possibility of that being revisited, the Chair did make his comments.
Yeah. Mr. Zuma, I've noticed you're very polite. You say, I'm very disappointed. You say, I don't know what he's talking about. And when you're asked more closely, what do you mean by that? You say, I deny it. I take it that's your politeness coming through.
I believe so, yes, sir.
Yeah. Now let's just talk about Mr. Boyson. The chairperson said, well, the issue isn't whether you were a co-complainant leading to your association with Mr. Boyson. The fact is there was an association and you went to the Gupta house. You yourself asked the question, but do these documents still exist? Can it not be established whether I was co-complainant in a matter being investigated by Lieutenant Botha in KZN. Do you invite such an investigation?
I most definitely do, sir.
And if it is found that you are not a co-complainant in the matter, that would suggest that Mr. Boyson is completely mistaken or not honest about how your relationship with him arose.
Yes, that would be correct, sir.
What possible reason would there be for him to be not frank, not honest, or even mistaken about his relationship with you and how it arose?
I do not know.
But if the background was not that you were a co-complainant that he came to be talking to, but as a result of a friend of yours being a complainant, he got to know you. And in that context, the conversation came to, well, you talk about the Guptas, why don't you come and see them? What would your comment be then?
If you can just repeat that question, please. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Boyson pictures your relationship as being, he comes to meet you in a semi-official capacity or official capacity as a co-complainant in a criminal matter, right?
Yes.
Were you a co-complainant in a criminal matter?
No, I was not.
What reason would Mr. Boyson have to be mistaken or even to be not honest about that?
I'm not sure. He may have been confused. I do not know.
Your version is that you became friendly. You met because a friend of yours was a complainant in a criminal matter, right?
Yes, that's it.
And thereafter you became friendly.
I like to believe so, yes.
Mr. Boyson doesn't characterize that relationship you had as a friendship or a fairly close acquaintanceship. He doesn't characterize it as that.
No, he doesn't.
He says you unexpectedly took him to the Gupta home.
That's what he said.
And what is the truth?
That all along, as I detailed before, when I was asked by the evidence leader, that day in question, there was an agreement for us to go through to the said meeting.
I think, Mr. Helens, if I'm not mistaken, to be fair to General Boyson, he does say that the two of them had several meetings. So to the extent that what you have said to the witness might suggest that his version is that there might not have been much interaction between them before that. I'm just saying my understanding of his affidavit is that he does say before that there had been quite some interaction between the two of them.
Mr. Chairman, without asking the witness, let me make a direct submission, if I may.
Yes.
We invite the Commission to investigate whether Mr. Zuma was a co-complainant. If it is shown that he wasn't, it would colour the background reason to Mr. Boyson explaining that they met and how they met, and it would give impetus to Mr. Zuma's evidence, namely that we were friendly and he wanted to see the Guptas at my suggestion, as I understand it, and so I took him there, as opposed to it started off as something formal and then out of the blue. The investigation of co-complainant would contextualize and destabilize, we submit, Mr. Boyson's evidence to the extent necessary to make far less ominous the trip to 5 Saxonwold. That's the point. And then in conclusion, Mr. Sundaram, he mentions you, but without a purpose, because you don't appear to have done anything in any of these meetings at all.
Yes, sir.
But you get the mention.
Honorable every time.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're not there and once when you were there.
Yes, sir.
And then Mr. Ramatlodi too, there doesn't seem to be much point in him pulling you in. It's just that you are on the crime scene, as Mr. Mokoena loves to say. Coincidentally, apparently.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Helens. I see, Mr. Helens, that you kept to your 10 to 12 minutes. That's to be commended.
Sorry.
I've been around a long time.
So, excuse me.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, we spoke on this side, and there's no chance of completing my side of the work today.
Yes.
And we thought of asking you whether we could perhaps commence at 9 o'clock
Yes.
tomorrow morning. Then I should be done by 10 o'clock.
No, that, well, one, adjourning is fine, but we might not need to start at 9 o'clock. We might be fine with starting at 10 o'clock because the other witnesses that are scheduled for tomorrow will be very short.
I thought it might just persist in.
Yes, no,
getting the
I
job
understand.
done.
No, I
So
understand.
it'll be 10 o'clock then?
Yeah, so we'll start at 10 o'clock. I'm sorry, Mr. Zuma,
Sorry
you want to say something?
Yes, please. Just a concern from my side, and it's quite a big concern. Just from the evidence pack that has been presented today and that
Yeah.
I've been questioned on, there's a glaring omission. I'm not sure if there's a mistake
A
or
glaring
not.
omission.
Of a witness that testified in front of the commission, and
Or who has not been mentioned here, who has not been included here?
correct, that would be a Ms. Fakey Mento. So I'm not sure where that
Yes.
line of questioning would be.
I think what may have been intended, maybe we should adjourn. Your counsel hears what you are saying, and I think they have started talking to Mr. Mkwena.
Okay.
They will discuss, and tomorrow morning I will be told what happened to your concern.
Okay.
But it's possible that it was thought that you might be asked to come back at another time. But Mr. Mkwena will deal with the concern, and then tomorrow morning I will be told.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
So we are going to adjourn. Or before we adjourn. Okay, maybe we can deal with this tomorrow. We will adjourn, and then tomorrow we'll start at 10 o'clock. We adjourn.